ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Transformers figure unboxing and review video. Now today we aren't taking a look at any normal Transformers figure. This is the self-transforming Robosen Optimus Prime. He very comfortably straddles the line between figure and piece of tech. So yeah, I'm super excited to get this guy out here and see what he can do. Now I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is of course down in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here of course we have the box art, and with this guy being my first product from Robosen, I literally had no idea what to expect. The entire box is covered in this soft touch rubber coating and it feels super high quality. You do have a wireframe image of Optimus in this high gloss on the front of the box, collector's edition up top, as well as the two logos letting you know, yeah, this is officially licensed. On the side, you do have a few call-outs letting you know what Optimus can do, as well as the QR code that you scan to download the app to control Optimus himself. On the back, it's pretty straightforward, a high-gloss Autobot logo. Now, there is another box on the inside of the outer shell, so here we have it. It's a very sturdy foam block. You do have the authentic Transformers Autobot logo front and center, as well as Robosen down below, plus a carrying handle up top. You know your figure means business when the box comes with a carrying handle. You do also have these locking mechanisms on the side that, when you unclip them, you are then able to open the top cover. This entire unboxing experience kind of reminds me of something like a DJI drone. It feels very high quality. You do have this foam piece up on top that does house the various accessories, and then we have Optimus Prime himself. Now this is actually a lot bigger than I was expecting, and as you can see, there are a few parts and pieces that are moving around, but don't worry, when we turn him on, he will situate himself correctly. What we are going to do now though is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Here we have all the parts and pieces. Now starting off with the instruction manuals first, you do get 3 of them. There is a lot to learn with Optimus Prime. The first of which is this, the accessories guide. So do make sure you sit down and give these a read. You also get a much thicker instruction manual in 2 languages that goes through everything, and then a far slimmer quick start guide letting you know how to turn him on, the various commands you can say, and how to switch him to app mode. With this guy being a piece of tech, you obviously need a means of charging him up, so he comes with a regular charging brick. There is a light on the outside, so it lets you know when he's done charging. You also get a micro USB to USB-A cable. I'm not exactly sure why, because this isn't used to charge him. In the instructions, they simply call this the data cable. You also get his smokestacks packaged separately. They simply peg onto his shoulders, and they're done in a very shiny metallic silver. You also get 2 shiny Autobot logos. I don't know if I'm going to be going with these or something more similar to this with the red and white, just slightly more classic, but I'm glad that you get them, so you have a choice of which way you'd like to display him. You also get 2 iconic Optimus Prime weapons, the first of which is the Energon axe, done in this gorgeous, vibrant orange translucent plastic. There is simply a post on the end that slides into his hand. I'll show you how that works a little bit later in the video. You also get the awesome Ion Blaster. The reason it's so awesome is because you can slide this piece back and there's an LED in the front. And the coolest part about this is when you have him wielding it, you can actually make it look like he's firing this, which, yes, you will see a little bit later in the video. What we are going to do now though is get Optimus Prime himself out here and take a closer look. Here we have him in his truck mode. Now, basically, we're going to split this review into two sections. We're going to check out the truck mode first, what it can do, what the app looks like, how it moves around, and then we'll transform him and check out the robot mode. But as for the truck, yep, it looks like it should. It's Optimus Prime. Now, they very clearly had to make a few compromises with the design, most notably the big honkin' feet on the back of the truck mode. But they had to do that so he could self-transform, stand up, and walk around in robot mode. So it's a concession that I am perfectly fine with. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. Now, the reason I have him positioned slightly off camera is because I wanted to show you him rolling out, because of course he can drive. Now, on the app you do have this section which says remote control. On the right you do have a horn, an Autobot symbol, and the transforming symbol. If you push that, Optimus will simply transform. On the left you have a thumbstick for driving him around. Now, if you move it forward, he will of course go in that direction at quite a rate, mind you. And he also, for some reason, does speak as he's driving, so I will let him do the talking.
Optimus, let's roll. Optimus Prime.
You can also, of course, click the horn, which is very simply a horn, and in the Autobot symbol,
it's time to finish this.
Which has him say,
we must stop the monsters.
A few different voice lines.
Dinobots, unleash your rage. Dinobots, unleash your rage.
And as you can hear, it is a very loud speaker. Now, I don't know about you, but having an Optimus Prime who can literally drive around is totally awesome.
Let's roll.
In order to transform him between robot and vehicle mode and vice versa, you have two options. You can use voice commands or you can use the app. Now, for obvious reasons, we'll mostly be focusing on the app throughout the course of the video because it's kind of hard to narrate when you're also giving commands to Optimus Prime. But for this clip, I thought why not give them a go. Now, to activate him, you simply say, "Hey Optimus Prime,
greetings,
transform." And as you can see, he is now transformed into robot mode. If you want him to go back into vehicle mode, you would simply say the same thing. Here we have him standing straight up and down in robot mode. And this guy is awesome. I mean, that transformation gimmick alone, in my opinion, is worth the price of admission. Now, they have had to make a few compromises, a couple of panel gaps here and there, the ties are up on his hips, and a few faux pieces, but they had to do that for the sake of that transformation gimmick. If you want an Optimus Prime that looks super show accurate, Takara Tomy already made the MP44, or if you want the movie version, 3.0 has you covered with the DLX scale. But if you want an Optimus Prime that can transform itself, it can pose, and it can drive around in truck mode, this is your guy right here. And, I mean, there's no denying it, that is very clearly Optimus Prime. Even when he's standing straight up and down, if you have him switched on, he will be swaying back and forward just a little bit to show that there are some signs of life there. He's not just a super rigid bot, this guy can move. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. Here we have him up close and personal. Now, we won't be spending a ton of time here because this guy does most of the stuff himself. He transforms himself, he poses himself, and he can walk around by himself. So there isn't a ton of stuff that you have to move around. There are two sections though you have to fold away to complete the transformation, those wing mirrors and these gas cans to hide these outer wheels. But aside from that, he does everything else himself. Now there are some gaps and crevices that are left from the transformation gimmick. Does that bother you? Well, that's a personal decision, but I can totally get around that because this guy does a ton of stuff. Now let's talk about the head sculpt. It is a little bit more MP10, perhaps, than a cartoon accurate Prime, but I like the way it looks. It works for this figure. He does have some LEDs in his eyes that are a nice deep blue. They're not the most vibrant in the world, but they do show some signs of life. He also has an Autobot symbol up here on his shoulder. You can take the included metallic stickers and potentially stick it over the top, but this is the one I'm going to use. It's a little bit more G1 accurate. As for paint applications, he does have this metallic pearlescent red on his upper torso, some very shiny metallic silver, and then some gorgeous deep metallic blue for his legs. So overall, yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the fit and finish. Now, if you're not a fan of the top plate that sits behind his head, you can actually remove it. It simply slides off. And yes, he does look far better now in robot mode, but in my opinion, it's worth leaving it on because whenever you go to transform him, it's much simpler to just hit the button and he will transform, rather than first having to remember to go ahead and find this piece and peg it back into place. Now, just like we did for vehicle mode, let's go over some of the app functions for robot mode. Now, the layout is almost identical with the thumbstick on the left for movement and the various buttons on the right. I will give you callouts as to which buttons I'm pushing as we go through the various functions. Now, in order to move him, you obviously just drag the thumbstick and then he can walk around. You can control the movement speed of Optimus if you want him to move a little bit quicker or slower, and when he is walking around, he does actually say things, as you can hear. He does have a little bit of a robotic whir, but I guess that makes sense because at the end of the day, he is a robot. Now, as for these three functions, you do actually need to equip his weapons, so here we have them fully equipped, and it's relatively straightforward. They literally just peg into his hands. Now, I will be doing one after the other and let Optimus Prime speak for himself, but starting off with the Autobot symbol.
Autobots, engage the enemy.
Next up, we of course have the Ion Blaster. And then lastly, the Energon Axe. As you can see, self-transforming isn't this guy's only gimmick. He can do a ton of awesome stuff. In fact, there is an entire pose library, but to activate those you do need to remove the weapons. So without further ado, let's take them off and check out a few more awesome functions. One of the best parts about this guy being a literal tech product is you can download more poses. Now you simply click on actions and then up top you can see download more actions, please click here. And in doing so, it takes you to the Movements Download Center. You then have a bunch of different poses that you can download to your Optimus Prime. Now, if it's, say, Christmas time and they want to add a special Merry Christmas action, they can totally do that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bunch more of these actions be added to Prime over time. Now, you do have a few very classic ones and some awesome Peter Cullen voice lines. Now, let's start off with Freedom. It's a classic. You do have a warning that tells you to remove the Ion Blaster and the Energon Axe, as I said in the previous clip, so make sure you are listening to that warning for fear of maybe damaging your weapons or Optimus Prime.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings.
Next up, we have Power, which also has the same warning. one of the most badass functions that I didn't think this guy was going to be able to do is a 3-point landing pose.
Till all are one.
And then lastly, I want to show you Energon. Now, I'm sure when you get your Robosen Optimus Prime, you can try a ton more of these poses. And of course, let me know what you think of them down in the comments below.
I may be low on Energon, but I still have enough to conquer you, Megatron.
Now, just like we did for vehicle mode, when this guy is transformed into robot mode, he can actually move and walk around. Now, you do control him using the app in the very same way as when he's in truck format. You simply drag the thumbstick forward, and Optimus Prime will walk in that direction. Now, it's not necessarily the quickest speed at which someone would walk, but it definitely gets the job done. He can also shuffle around and then move left and right. But yeah, having an Optimus Prime who can literally walk around might just be one of the most badass things that I have ever seen. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have Robosen Prime and 3-0 War for Cybertron Optimus Prime. And as you can see, there is a rather significant height difference. If you were hoping Robosen Prime will scale alongside your MP collection, it's not going to happen. He's around double the size. This guy is a beast. I actually like the size. He's a standalone unit, and I'm pretty sure he had to be this big just because of the complex engineering and all of the moving parts and servos. So yes, it totally makes sense. But if you're wondering how he scales next to a DLX figure, well, here it is. Just wrapping up on the Robosen self-transforming Optimus Prime. This guy is hugely impressive from a technical and engineering standpoint, just based off what he can do, and also the way he looks, even though, yes, I will readily admit they have had to make concessions here and there to get the gimmick to work. It's not really at the cost of him looking like Optimus Prime. If you saw this guy transform in front of you, I'm pretty sure you're going to be suitably impressed. You're not going to point out the 2 gaps in the chest and be like, ooh, that's a bit weird. Doesn't really look like Optimus Prime anymore now, does it? Because it does. It does exactly what it says on the tin. In fact, it does more than I was expecting. The various poses you can download, the interactive nature with the voice commands, he can drive around, he can walk around, and convert back and forth between robot and vehicle mode. This is my favorite Transformers thing to date. I am hoping they make more Transformers, maybe even a fully transformable and drivable Bumblebee. We'll have to wait and see as time goes on whether or not Robosen will make a bunch more figures to go with this Prime. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is of course down in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. While you're down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video. Is something that, number one...